Alright guys, did a little more development work on the LS3 Chinese copies. You can see I gave them a little bowl work, right? Brought the outside wall out enough to break through to the stud. A lot of LS3s are brought out quite a bit more than this. So this is, take some metal out, give it some flows and see where you are. Now obviously it was a big port to begin with. And if this is going to get CNC'd, I should say, it gets even bigger. That's one of the things I don't like about these. They're actually, I would like to do development work on like a porter's head on the LS3, and you start with a smaller port and only make it bigger where it needs to be. But this is what I got for now. So you can see the shapes look much better. All right. Change the short side radius a little bit. Take a quick look at the exhaust. The exhaust, still basically the GM shape, you know. What's really important is there's not a lot of metal. Notice that port gets bigger down towards the roof, right? This gets much bigger towards the roof. There's really not a lot of metal between those two ports. Ask me how I know. I ruined an LS3 because that's where the flow really wants to go, so I kept taking metal out of that area until I went right through to the other port. So you really got to pay attention to that. Okay, you can see I brought that wall out. I kicked the short side radius out a little bit. I changed the angle of the short side radius a little bit. The straight wall didn't really do a whole lot to it, just cleaned it up a little bit. The roof really only got cleaned up a little bit. All right. This is when, you know, you make it a little bigger, you flow it, see where you are. Okay, still has the basic GM shape. Took a little bit out of the center of the cylinder, but like I said, it's thin there, so you got to be careful. And kicking out the cylinder wall side is like a double-edged sword, because that's not really where the flow wants to go. You can try to force it that way, but on these ports, they really want to stick towards the center. So you make it bigger there, and then you get more speed discrepancy across the port. So you got to go easy on that and calculate how you got to do that. All right, valve job has been touched, right? Because it's kind of part of this project. Really wants to keep the valve job where it is. Maybe just clean up the 45 so it's good, and then CNC the rest. So got to try to get away with what I can on the valve job. You can see the short side radius got a little bit of the layback, a little bit wider. Okay, intake port. Looks like it's got a nice shape right now. Right. The short side radius got a little bit wider. But remember, you can't go much wider on the center of the cylinder because there's not a lot of metal there. Okay, it's got a little bit of polish, not completely polished. You can still see a little bit of texture left from the burr. All right. I haven't really touched the chamber since I did this work. So I did some work to both the intake and the exhaust port. Let's see where we are now. Okay. So what we're going to be comparing is, this is quick cleanup, right? 2.165 valve with a 35-degree back cut. Use the same valve here. So this is what I consider the first cut. This was just a cleanup. And you can go down the list. You got equals, plus, minus, 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 equals, plus, plus, minus, plus. So it's a hit or miss. And then somebody's going to say, wow, Charlie, you really screwed that up. How can you fully port the entire intake port and lose in spots? It's a good question. Maybe I took that wall out too much. Maybe I didn't take that wall out enough. Maybe the increased flow across the short side radius is causing a problem. maybe it's the shrouding in the chamber that's really causing the issue. So you got to look at a bunch of different things before you can say, hey, it's a complete failure. So let's take a look at the exhaust. The exhaust is a 1.59, no back cut, cleanup versus first cut. I didn't write first cut, but take a look. We got minus, 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 equals, plus, 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 plus. Take a look at 500, right? With the big pipe, with 228.5. With the big pipe, we're at 237.6. That's a little strange, right? I mean, it's only going from a 204 to a 209, but look at how much it changes when you put a pipe on it. Right? Interesting stuff. I didn't put the small pipe on here because it took too much away. You notice the small pipe actually is less than the naked port because the pipe is actually smaller than the port. All right, did some speed comparisons. These are cleanup speeds on the exhaust. Cleanup speeds on the exhaust. First ported exhaust. First ported. Now, I didn't write down. I usually write down what lift I did it at. I think these were at 500. I think these were at 0.7. So it's not fair to really compare them. These are probably all at 500. Notice how much less I have speed at the roof now that I did some more work to that short side radius. Okay, more air goes around the short side radius, less goes to the roof. Okay, and you can tell because your short side radius speeds all went up. So, step one development on the LS3 Chinese copies. I don't really know what brand it is still, but it's really not a bad casting. I know changing the valve job would make a huge difference on this, but that's not really what my customer wants me to do, so I'll do what he wants. All right, guys. Have a good day. Thanks.